Please be. I'm alive. No. Alright, let me check my audio here. And then I will be good to switch over. Okay, so I think if I talk down here, one, because alright, yeah. I wish I could prop my mic up a little bit better here. But I also, like, obviously don't want to end up breaking it. Let me see if I can tighten. That's loosen. Is it? Yes. Yes, it is. Alright. Okay. We're good. I can hear my audio. It sounds good. I think my mic is propped up well enough that it seems fine. Alrighty. I am good to switch over. Okay. It is, I won't lie. Oh, I forgot to make a proper... Oh, there we go. I forgot to make a proper post on Twitter. I could do that in a second, honestly. Alright. Hello. I am here. It's been a bit. It's been exactly... Let me look. Let me look exactly how long it's been. It has been... Since... Hold on. I did turn off my headphones, right? I'm just double checking. Yeah. Because if I don't need them, I don't need them, right? But if we go to my channel, we go live. It has been a few weeks. It has been a few weeks, close to a month. Damn, it's been that long since. I mean, I guess it has been a bit. Yeah. So fair enough. It's been a bit since we did Arc 9, and even then, that was coming back from how long it had been since the last time we did this. So apologies for all that, but we are here now. So I stated this in my YouTube posts. I'm gonna restate it now again. I have every intention to finish Arc 9 within the coming week, because here's how this works essentially, right? I'm just gonna state the obvious because I also stated the obvious on the posts. We have Deltarune coming on Wednesday. Now, if you know me and how I felt last time we played that, I am absolutely going to just show up on time for that, right? Like, unironically, I think I am going to start streaming at like 10 a.m. I think straight up I will be here 10 a.m. ready to go, right? I'm going to take an hour to just talk about some stuff I listed down that I wanted to talk about before we like head into it, right? Some potential things that might grow with the actual chapter itself, and then also some thoughts I had for chapter 4 that I just wanted to go further into, because I'll probably have the game open. Maybe not. The game probably has to update during that time, but we'll see. We'll see, right? However, despite all that, that's going to happen Wednesday next week, right? That is a guarantee. Now, the obvious thing that comes with that is the fact that, okay, so if I'm doing that next week, that means, that's kind of the thing. It's like, I don't have much left of Arc 9, and technically speaking, I could finish that before Wednesday. Now, this is what's going to be tough, is that there is still enough left that I'm going to have to stream a decent bit, right? I don't know how long tonight will go on for. I kind of thought maybe only 2 chapters because I was feeling a bit tired when I had woken up, right? So I'm like, I might not do like that much and everything. I don't know anymore. I might do more, right? We'll see on that, and we'll see on chapter length and everything. But absolutely, the intention is to stream as much as possible before Wednesday so we can finish this up and then we're good to go, right? Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's in store. I've been excited for the rest of this arc. I've been excited for Arc 10. Literally, when I did my reaction I outright said when we were getting towards the end of the episode, I was like, dude, I need to get back to Arc 9. I'm like, I need to just, like, for obvious reasons, I need to get back down. But yeah, 56? Okay. Maybe we will only do 2 tonight. We'll see. We'll see how I'm feeling. We'll see how I'm feeling when we get there. Um, there's a chance we only do 2 tonight. That's fine. Because you know why that's fine, actually. You know why that's fine? I made this plan understanding that I was probably only going to do 2 today and then like 2 Saturday or something like that. It could also be tomorrow, right? Let me discuss the plan here actually because I'm like kind of rambling with a lot of this. So the goal is we do at the bare minimum 2 today, right? We could do more depending on how I'm feeling. Even if the like 56 is a long chapter, I might just do it just because, right? We'll see on that, right? But I do 2 today. Tomorrow, I don't know if I will stream, but it is a possibility. Unlike usual, it is a possibility that I might, right? I normally wouldn't do that sort of thing of just like back to back reading sessions because like it's kind of the thing of that just doesn't really work for me. Um, but this time around, I am willing to, right? I am in a spot where it's like, I'll get to the reasoning why after, right? I'll talk about the whole Deltarune sort of thing after, right? Um, but I am kind of willing to this time where I'm like, you know what? Okay, maybe, right? Maybe I really will just do a follow-up stream tomorrow. Boom, there we go, right? So it's a possibility, no guarantee, but a possibility. Ooh, excuse me. Saturday is pretty much a guarantee. Uh, I do have the intention of streaming Saturday. Now I do have to be somewhere pretty early in the day. So there is a chance it's a later stream just because if I'm feeling a bit tired, I'll probably, come back, take a nap, and then we'll be here for the stream. Uh so there's a chance of that on Saturday, but I'm willing to absolutely show up on Saturday, do all that. Yeah. Then we reach Monday. Monday is probably going to be the trickiest if Saturday and today we only do 2. Because dividing all that up, I have about 8 chapters in total to handle, something like that, right? So that means 2 of those chapters get removed from today. Okay, that heads into 6. We remove 2 on Saturday. That narrows it down to 4. I have no idea how long those last 4 chapters are. All 4 might be covered on Monday. My big reason for specifically doing all that on Monday is just because I don't want to stream back to back to back, right? I don't want to stream reading sessions from Monday to Tuesday and then Wednesday I get up early because that's another thing, right? I'm gonna have to like fully prep, get up everything for Wednesday. I'm gonna get up for Wednesday and then be like, hey guys, stream bright and early, right? So there's that. Now, there's the obvious question of why is there such a rush to do this before Deltarune, right? Because realistically, I am streaming Deltarune for 2 days and then it's done, right? I have the first initial playthrough I'll do on Wednesday, and then there's the other playthrough of it that I'm prepping. I guess not currently, but I've been prepping. Uh, that I already had a save file of like a year ago, for Thursday, right? I've been prepping that one. That one's on the way too. Those are going to be back to back. I can't say that the Thursday one's going to necessarily be early like Wednesdays will be, because Wednesday's just going to be when it launches. But yeah, those will be pretty much back to back. So obviously there comes the question of why, right? If this is going to be 2 days. Well, here's the thing. That's going to be 2 days. And if there's any extras I need to do or anything off stream I need to do in regards to it, right? I don't expect there to be, but if there's anything I forgot about that I want to do, or if I want to just go through it again, like for example, I didn't do all the eggs. I could do all the eggs. I could say fuck it and go through and just do all the eggs, right? But then that means I have to do all the secrets again. So it's like, right? And I'm not opposed to that, but that would take time, right? So if I feel like doing the egg stuff, I could. Um, but if I have to do anything off stream, there's that, right? So I have to go and do that. Okay, whatever, right? Then there's also watching friends play it, right? I'm gonna be watching some friends play it. That'll be cool. And then one of my particular friends, I am going to be there for in terms of like voice acting and everything, right? Because that's the sort of thing, right? Is just playing for it, voice acting for that, all that. And it's probably not going to be for just one day. That'll probably be over the course of a few days. So my big thing is that that's going to take a bit, right? There's a chance it takes a week, maybe two. I don't know, right? There's a lot that could happen here because last time there was a lot that could happen with it, and it took up practically a whole month, right? I think I brought that up at one point with one of the reading sessions, is that that shit took up a lot of my time, right? Now, to be fair, it was a matter of getting my like old shit back, right? Like old save files, all that. Or I guess not old save files, but going back to previous chapters, getting what I needed to, then heading back into the chapters I had already done, getting what I needed to there, and then having it ready for this upcoming stream, right? So technically speaking, it's probably shorter, but I don't want to risk it, and I do want to get to arc 10. That's kind of my thing, is I want to get to arc 10 a whole lot right now. So it's kind of this thing of, okay, I want to be caught up, and I don't want to worry over the whole Deltarune stream later. So the intention is within the next week, hardly even fully a week, but like just by off by a couple days. But within the next week, I want to have Arc 9 fully done. That's it, right? We're good to go. And we move on to Arc 10. I work on the video, right? Because that's another thing. I can record the Arc 9 video and work on it while I'm like hanging out with friends and doing stuff with them, because I think like some of the ADT art I was working on when I was doing stuff with friends in regards to Deltarune last year, right? I think I was outright working on some of that stuff because it was like, yeah, I don't have to pay attention 247. I just pay attention at the important bits where I want to see the reaction to something, or if I have to voice in that part, right? So that's the big difference. So like with that, I can essentially record my review of the whole like final volume. That'll be good, and I can edit that in the background. No worries, we can have it out. That said, the full version might take a little bit longer, like for the full arc, just because I will admit not a ton of progress has been made with this. I do need to actually get back to this. I'm holding it at a bad point because the mic's in the way. I do need to get back to this, right? It is actually I've not spent too much time with it, so I need to, for the sake of I want to add something to that full video just like I did last time. So if I can, I'll get back to that. But of course, right, because of how quick we're being with this, I can't immediately put that in the full version. So the full version might take a little bit longer, or I make it a separate review. There's a chance I could just do a separate review. We'll see, right? I'll see how it goes, and we'll go from there. But yeah, so that's the plan. So today, Saturday, and Monday are pretty much guarantees for Arc 9. Within those few days, we will finish this, right? I don't know how many chapters will be covered per day, but we will finish this. I have every intention to sit down and finish this. The only other possibilities is Tuesday next week. I technically could, right? Depends on how much we would have left, but maybe, right? Maybe if I do split it up in twos yet again, we could save a little bit more for like Tuesday, depending. And tomorrow. Tomorrow's a possibility, but can't be too late, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm gonna have to eat and I'm gonna have to, just get ready to sleep because if I'm getting up early on Saturday, that's how it is. So obviously Friday, also a little bit mixed on what it's gonna be. We'll see, right? But with that said, we are here now. We get to properly do all this. It's gonna be great. I'm very excited to see what's left. Oh boy. Let me take a drink just because, I've been rambling about all that. Um Okay. I will say, regardless of this slightly, maybe not stressful, but in a sense stressful schedule, I am very excited. I have to admit, I am very excited. Like, we get to finish this arc, and then I get to play the game that I probably am just gonna have shoved in my top 5. Toby is gonna have to try and make that chapter bad for me to not put it in my top 5. He will actually have to try to make it bad. But this is good. This is good. All right. I did not check to see if it's on the correct tab, so we're gonna find out when I do this. Sick. I don't have to worry. That's great, right? Because I was worried that was gonna be on the chat again, and it's like, well, all right. If we are good there, then I mean I don't know what to say. We're good. We are good to go. That's great. All right. Mm. Okay. So let, let, let me really quick go through what it was last time because it's been a few weeks. Yeah. So there was this whole thing. There was my embarrassing little mistake in there because I didn't notice the it was talking about the eye itself and not, you know. Right, yeah. He had knocked out Amelia essentially with what had happened, and then Felt showed up. All right, I'm remembering now. I'm remembering all of it. All right, here we go. Oh, I forgot to hold on. Forgot to close this real quick. There we go. Ooh, you can tell I'm tired. Sorry about that. But yeah, uh, I did kind of debate on potentially delaying the stream to tomorrow, and then just covering a decent bit tomorrow and Saturday, and then it's like, you know, but we're here. That's what matters. All right. Just like you, I am a complete failure of a girl. Aldebaran would never forget the somber expression upon the witch's visage as she spoke those words. And so he had fought. Did even the witch, with a face that seemed to know just about anything and everything concerning this world's providence, with a demeanor that seemed to disseminate, I guess, the roots of knowledge through every nook and cranny of this world, who conducted herself with an air of understanding every aspect of the universe, did she too have moments in which she grieved her own powerlessness? Of course I do. If you would like an example, then your very existence, the very fact that that you are currently like this, is proof that I was lacking, after all. Hearing that, Aldebaran's feelings were complicated. Within Aldebaran, the witch was a great existence, and though he was loath to admit it, she was even she was even a tremendous one. Although there were few to whom he could compare her, she was someone who always felt greater than any comparison. For that witch to consider herself a complete failure was of no joy to him whatsoever. Only, if the witch had been bereft of such self acknowledgment, her current relationship with Aldebaran would not exist. If the witch had been in any position to not deem herself a complete failure, then you and I have simply remained in our rightful places. You are free to daydream about a future that did not unfold in such a manner, but unfortunately, you ended up being dealt the worst fate of all. Though I am sorry to say, it was rather fortuitous for myself. That deliberately wicked phrasing seemed to be an equal blend of the witch's humor and the witch's sincerity. As for which one it actually was, he could not tell. After all, always boasting of her inability to comprehend the human heart, the witch's true feelings were unclear to even Aldebaran, who had been in her company for so long, leaving him with nothing to latch on to. I forgot to actually make a tweet. You know what? That's all right. But supposing the witch's words were correct, it was rather strange. After all, even though the alignment of the stars was at its absolute worst for Aldebaran, in his current circumstances, he did not consider his days with the witch to be a misfortune. Though certainly, with her putting him through the experience of being killed a million times under the guise of being a trial, calling him by a name he disliked even after objecting to it in disagreement, there was no doubt that these circumstances were far removed from any ordinary notion of happiness. They, I mean, yeah, these have been out for a bit, haven't they? I've been behind on this shit for a while, and I mean, sorry, I could feel the need to take a drink. Uh, it is like interesting in terms of like thinking about how long it's been because it's like I don't know. To me, I guess because I've just been busy with stuff, it feels like this point of like, oh yeah, it hasn't been that long. Like I've been behind, but you know, there's not that much to do. And meanwhile, like, no, the last time there was a trailer for Arc 6, which wasn't even a trailer, it was the intro. But last time there was essentially that, right? They showed the volume for Arc 10. And the last time we actually had a trailer, they showed the volume. They showed this volume, right? So it's kind of the funny thing of like, yeah, yeah, that's been like two stages that they've had to go, right? This has been a while, and then just no, yeah. Ooh, excuse me. But it is wild to think of the time on that of just like, man, it's been since before Arc 6 dropped, like around probably the most recent like proper trailer, not just the intro, but proper trailer. And then meanwhile, you know, Arc 6 is done its first core. Second core's in a couple months. And meanwhile, I'm sitting here like, hey guys, finally here to read these. It took me a bit, but I'm here. Uh Also, yeah, I do like very clear implication of her just calling him Al like, over and over. Uh where the fuck was I? I'm like I'm getting lost in my own. Uh, I mean, I guess I did actually move it down correctly, didn't I? No, yeah, I did. I did latch. I did move it down because it was talking about the latch on too. Yeah. All right. You know what? That worked out. But supposing the witch's words were correct, it was rather strange. After all, even though the alignment of the stars was at its absolute worst for Aldebaran, in his current circumstances, he did not consider his days with the witch to be a misfortune. Though certainly, with her putting him through the or wait, oh wait, yeah, no, never mind. I did not scroll down. My bad. Uh, there's no doubt that the circumstances. Yep. Uh, to think you could find value in living alongside a complete failure of a witch, you are you are truly a pitiful child. This was a complex muttering containing both self-deprecation and alongside a firm deprecation of the other party. However, Aldebaran would not fail to hear the gentle timbre uh, that could not be fully concealed therein. Even if they were meager, even if they were easily lost in the mix, even if they were difficult to understand, earnest emotions did dwell within the witch, searching for evidence as a basis to believe that was a pastime of Aldebaran's. In truth, he did not really know for sure. It might have just been a misunderstanding or a misconception. What mattered was how Aldebaran felt. The witch's true intentions were her own to keep. What was the truth for Aldebaran was for Aldebaran alone. The way you separate those things is remarkably reminiscent. As expected, the thing known as influence is not to be trifled with. Narrowing her black eyes, fiddling with her white bangs. Oh, wait, Pandora. No. Thus spoke the witch. See, now I'm just making fun of myself. I'm making fun of the fact that I made that mistake last time. Uh, while simultaneously looking past Aldebaran to somebody else, and at herself reflected within Aldebaran's irises, the witch muttered those words reminiscently. Influence. It was only natural for such a thing to exist. In birth and in upbringing. In Aldebaran and in the witch. I'll just, cap this off and then we'll scroll all the way down. Failure, inadequacy, imperfection. Was that past of hers really so shameful for the witch was it occurs for him to think that thanks to it having turned out that way, his days with the witch were able to continue. If only one thing could be said, it was Aldebaran, a reunion spanning a decade for Aldebaran and stretching across 4 centuries for the other party, when the figure of the witch, nay, of the witch of greed, present amidst familiar scenery, was one that contradicted the complete failures she had spoken about back on that day. Aldebaran was overcome with unbearable feelings of loss and despair. Mm, mm. That's I will say that aspect was still such a fucking wild twist, assuming it's exactly what I had thought. Because then it's like, man, like if that whole thing is being quite literal with it, right? I think I was discussing this last time, but if that thing is being quite literal with it, of like, oh yeah, like 400 years ago, all that, right, spanning that amount of time, and then I don't know where he's flashed forward to what would essentially equate to like a couple decades ago, but not many, right? That's like that's so interesting because that gives a lot of context to essentially his own sort of like I want to say his own answer to the whole like, oh, when were you brought here sort of thing, because it's like to him it wouldn't feel that long ago. It'd feel like a decent bit of time, right? But if we go off this implication, it's like it doesn't feel like that long ago, but it would be, right? That's kind of the important note, is it essentially would be. So it's like, ooh, ooh. Though then again, I guess I mean present time is different than this, but at the same time, at the same time, here's what I'm gonna say. At the same time, one, it's hard to believe Al to a certain degree at this point, and two, we don't know full passage of time. Like as weird as that sounds, right? It should be 1 to 1, most likely. We don't know full passage of time between now, like here, and the real world. So it's like it's a little hmm, it's a little hard to tell in that regard, right? It's this mixture of Al could be bullshitting, and then also what's the 1 to 1, or maybe not 1 to 1, but you know what I mean, like that passage of time difference between these two worlds. It's kind of interesting in that regard. All right. Fiddling with the metal fixtures on his black helmet, Aldebaran surveyed the situation. Before his eyes, having used the almost divine colossal anchor of ice as a landmark, a lineup of personnel boldly squared off against Aldebaran. The group opposing him was one centered around Filore. No, around Felt. So Aldebaran made no effort to question the meaning of those having assembled here. Even without needing to ask, he understood. Roy and Hankel had been defeated. He could not imagine that even Aldebaran had been defeated, but since the dragon had not hastened here, it seemed that it was being contained through some means. On top of defeating the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony, even if he may have been restricted with his authority and with the no-killing rule, the fact that they had even devised a countermeasure for the divine dragon was quite honestly beyond Aldebaran's imagination. Just what sort of stratagem had they prepared? He would likely not get an answer even if he asked. But 246. No matter how you slice it, a witch factor's way too far for your resolve, little Miss Petra. At Aldebaran's straightforward remark, an air of tension ran through Felt's group. The one whose cheeks had stiffened the most was naturally Petra, given that her name had been called out. From their perspective, Petra's authority was their trump card, something that was supposed to have been top secret. In fact, the policy had firmly shared by, or that policy had been firmly shared by all their personnel. Yet, even the most iron of hearts could not remain unfazed before an unforeseen stab. In response to Aldebaran's questions, everyone had kept up appearances, but through even the slightest shifts in gaze or attention, he would just keep testing over and over again, relentlessly probing in those directions. As a result, by pursuing the minute differences in their reactions, Aldebaran had arrived at the answer he desired, standing steadfast before him. Though he had been considerably shocked when it turned out to be Petra, who had been taken in, or who had taken in a witch factor. In the first place, I predicted that when either Little Miss Petra or Little Miss Melee read that, they'd be completely incapable of returning to the front lines. Having sealed Natsuki Subaru and Beatrice away at the Pleiades Watchtower, and after getting Garfield and Ezo out of the way, Aldebaran had let Petra and Melee go without any harm. Actually, take a quick drink. See, his first mistake was believing that that was going to affect Petra. I mean, it did, but you know what I mean. Like, affect her to the point that, you know, out of commission. Now, Melee's a different story. Melee, I want to say, like, Melee's torture that she's had to suffer through would potentially change that. But at the same time, by arc 6, she was afraid of dying. So, like, yeah. Not only, or wait, yeah. Not only was that because there had been no need to eliminate them, it was a stratagem in anticipation of what was to follow. In order to keep Reinhardt contained, it had been absolutely necessary to manifest the Witch of Envy. As the trigger for that, Aldebaran had selected Petra and Melee as the candidates to read Natsuki Subaru's Book of the Dead. In reality, the intrusion of the Witch of Envy had granted Aldebaran a way out from his prolonged fight against Reinhardt, successfully eliminating the greatest obstacle to his plan. However, even though reading anyone's book usually has a high chance of causing a mental breakdown, to think she was able to endure reading Natsuki Subaru's Book of the Dead. A precedent did exist. Aldebaran happened to know that all too well. But even so, the reason he did not believe that anyone could accomplish the same feat was due to the absolute nature of death. The Book of the Dead, belonging to Natsuki Subaru, was a special grade cursed object. All right, Tepe. Okay, hey, buddy. Hey, hey, hey. Listen, listen. I, I know last time we were here with a volume, you brought up King Crimson, but like, I'm taking another drink. Uh, I was literally about to just say, without even looking at the text, I was going to make a joke of just saying special grade curse, and then follow it up with some shit like, oh, like the goat, Jogo, and immediately I saw cursed object and I went, okay. All I saw was the word special grade. I saw special grade and I was gonna make that joke, and it immediately, okay. Depending on the situation, could be used as a trump card to defeat a higher level opponent. It was highly unlikely that there were many who could face it without having their hearts shattered. Or rather, we've got a bad habit of underestimating others. Oh, a little bit further up. Regardless of what Aldebaran thought, it was a matter of fact that Petra was now standing here. Not only had she avoided having her heart shattered by the impact of reading the Book of the Dead, she had even gone so far as to perform the outrageous act of housing a witch factor within herself. In all likelihood, the experience of reading the Book of the Dead had led Petra to doing so. There is nobody who can defeat you, you who I created. Flashing through the back of his mind, those words of the witch were intended to rouse Aldebaran's spirits, never to fill him with arrogance or cause him to stumble. If he got that mixed up, excuse me, sorry. Aldebaran would lose the witch factor for good this time. This time for good. He would lose the witch who, reduced to the witch of greed, had lost the heart she had certainly once possessed. In the end, I guess I can't, or I just can't leave fate in the hands of others. Suppressing the sentimentality, gripping his heart with deep breaths, Aldebaran faced forward. The enemy was strong, the obstacles many. He was bereft of allies, with nothing to be proud of. Even so, he decided to proceed. That instant, hurrah! Ablaze with rage, the stout fist of the golden tiger, yeah, I kind of figured, ferociously drove into Aldebaran's head. Oh, here comes another vow. God, Buddha, Odlagna, for as long as I live, I hereby vow to never partake in celebrations. Oh, man. Oh, that's good. That's good. 61 people in total. After the conclusion against Roy Alfred of Gluttony, that was what composed the Aldebusters. Sorry, I forgot about that name. The combined strength of the Amelia camp and the Felt camp reorganized for the final battle against Al. Right after the fierce battle had ended, when the team was reorganized without taking a moment to breathe, Petra could not help but feel gratitude and admiration that so many still chose to remain. However, that was by no means condemning those who did not accompany the reorganized team. After all, neither Otto nor Melee can be pushed any further than that. Just as the imaginary Subaru said, for Otto and Melee. You know what's interesting? You know what? You know what just reminded me about all this? Because Arc 6 recently happened. I just realized the irony of this happening for Petra because oh yeah, the general closest friend, like character to her, Melee, and Melee's the one who essentially haunted Subaru. So it's like I might have brought this up before. I might have brought this up when this originally happened, but it's interesting to think about. Of like, yeah, this is kind of funny in context because this is like really playing into some of the stuff with Arc 6. I mean, it makes sense, right? I've talked about how this arc obviously feels very connected with Arc 6, right? It feels like that proper follow up because we've spent so much time in Wallachia, so now we're back here, and then on top of that, it's another third related arc, right? In like groups of three. So yeah, it makes sense, but it's just kind of funny to think about now. Now having that in recent memory because of the actual anime. My eye is bothering the fuck out of me. Uh, yeah, wow, it's kind of funny. Just as the imaginary Subaru said, for Otto and Melee, both individuals who had served as deciding factors in the clash against gluttony, withdrawing from the front lines was necessary. And it was only natural for Otto, whose memories had been eaten, and Melee, who had vehemently exhausted herself by overworking her divine protection, to detain the Black Serpent. And it was not just them. Roy's trump card, unveiled in the 11th hour, using the authority of gluttony to force them to relive pains of the past, had aberrated some of their minds to the limit. Unlike wounds to the body, aberrations to the heart could not be easily restored even with Petra's compression. But then again, Melee still continued to insist that her recovery time be compressed so that she returned to the front lines. But if you took out an advance payment on your life, Subaru wouldn't be too happy. And so, persuaded by Petra, Melee had reluctantly, truly so very reluctantly, accepted her withdrawal from the battlefield. Hmm. You know, that does make it feel like, to me personally, that does almost make it feel like there's still that connection to the like the father like figure they were trying to establish for him in Arc 6 by the end. That's like, oh man. Like she wants to help out. So dude, especially with having Arc 6 in recent memory because of the I'm glad Arc 6 is coming out while I'm reading this. Honestly, maybe I'm kind of glad I did took like take this bit of a busy sort of delay because it's like ah seeing what her character was like early Arc 6, right? And like prior to that and everything. And then getting here, it's like, dude, she's grown so much. She has grown as a character so much. She had so much worry for Petra way early on. not way early on, but you know what I mean by like the third volume about the whole witch factor thing, where at the start she's jokingly like, "Oh, you don't want to take that stuff. It's bad. It's evil. You know, ooh, you don't." And then when Petra's kind of insisting on it, Melee has to like sit there and go, "What? No, 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 no. Hey, hey, I'm saying don't take the witch factor. I don't know if you noticed that wasn't a joke. I was being literal here, right? The fact that she has to like step in and talk to Petra about that and be like, no, 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 listen, I have experience with that. You don't want the witch factor, man. You don't want that sort of thing. And then having that here, it's like she wants to protect Petra, but she's like, fine, right? Like she just has to accept it, and it's like, ah, what a good character. She might go up on my tier list. This arc has done wonders for Melee. I mean, Arc 6, absolutely, right? Arc 6 is the most notable point for what it's done for Melee's character. But, like, Arc 9's doing a great job with her as well. I am, like, scared of the point that Capella gets back into the story because it's going to be like, oh, fuck, that's going to do even more. That's going to do even more. To be honest, Petra's maiden circuitry felt a subtle discomfort upon witnessing Melee's attitude in response to persuasion that cited Subaru. But since it was the result of her own actions, she did not speak much of it. Moreover, she also had the duty of keeping an eye out for the black serpent that had been summoned by Gluttony. Having vanished after combat had concluded, Petra felt apologetic that she was unable to grant her a complete rest. We've got no choice but to have the capable ones fill in where they can. With that said, there's still some crazy guys who will rush into the most high risk situations, even without their memories. It's incredible, isn't it? You can't help but think that Otto-san's that way, even without his memories. I guess it's just his innate disposition. He might be a bit of a risk junkie. If the person in question were to hear that remark, whether he had memories or not, he would likely retort in a deeply emotional tone. Could you please refrain from saying such disreputable things about me? But there was no way, or there was no avoiding him being thought of in such a manner. Either way, Gluttony had firmly weakened their precious fighting strength, limiting the cards in their hand for the climax. She was glad for Garfield's return, but the fact that they could not devote the entirety of their forces to Amelia and Rem was regrettable for both Petra and Subaru. But even so, we're going to win, Subaru. Yeah, let's go and win. After all, we can't let everything we've built up to this point be for nothing. Ah. Ooh. Oh wait, and then also another vow. For as long as I live, I hereby vow to never speak of my dreams to another. Ooh. Ooh. Alright. In the end, I just can't leave fate in the hands of others. An offhanded remark, yet with a tone carrying resolve, that which was spoken by Al had served as the signal. Hurrah! With the raging Garfield at the vanguard, the Aldebusters simultaneously sprung into action. Keeping her eyes trained over those movements, Petra grasped her hands tightly over her chest. With the ice anchor Amelia had fired as a landmark, Petra had compressed the distance to the current location with the Aldebusters in tow, bearing Al's path once more. In all honesty, the fact that Amelia and Rem were not present, and the fact that the Kunoichi assigned to accompany Al, who had unexpectedly been carried off with him, was nowhere to be found, was certainly a cause for concern. But Al's side has no reason to lift their no killing restriction. Using that as reassurance, perhaps that was placing a bit too much hope in their opponent's abilities and convictions. But when considering Al's fighting style, with his authority of turning back time, until this point, that was the foundation. Since his authority was far too strong, in a sense, Al had gotten away with being underestimated by his opponents up until now. And that premise even now that his allies had been stripped away from him, ultimately would not change. Gurgal, having rushed straight ahead without any eh, having rushed straight ahead without any preparatory uh, or whatever. We're moving on. Movements. Garfield raised his voice in pain. The reason for this was his collision into a stone slab that had suddenly appeared along his trajectory. Having slammed his face into the stone slab that had preempted his initial strike, Garfield's body rolled over midair, and slipping past from underneath Garfield, Al moved to I'm like trying to read ahead a little bit and it's messing me up. I'll move to intercept the fighting strength which followed after the Golden Tiger, coming after him with a trio of Ram, Flam, and Grasses. Oddly enough, the pink-haired sisters. Well then, how's it gonna go? 37. Intercepting Garfield's rush with a stone slab, he slipped underneath as the former reeled backwards. Timing had been unexpectedly light. If the stone slab was deployed too early, it would have been easily pulverized, and pulling it too late would allow Garfield to pass right by it. Perfecting the necessary timing to strike him in the face, he put it into practice. Gurgal. Ooh, excuse me. Ooh, excuse me again. Sorry about that. Hearing the cry of pain behind him, Aldebaran charged forward as three shadows swooped down upon him. He was flanked on his left and right by Flam and her sister, in sync with Ram, who had came at him from an upward diagonal. He could expect that sort of high precision coordination between twins, but Ram's ability to match them on first sight highlighted the abnormality of this team up. Thereupon, little Miss Rem was crushed flat at those cliffs back there. She wasn't. Do not underestimate Ram and Rem's sisterly love. Neutralized by the sisters, or symphastasia, sorry. The venom in his words failed to exhibit any effectiveness. I don't know, or like pause there. I was like, Uh, given her lack of discomposure, there was likely no falsehood in Ram's statement. Inferring how that signified Rem's safety, as well as the unknown fate of Ye, he merely ended up serving as venom against himself. However, Earthbrand arts, using Mana coming in to him via his pathway with the dragon, Aldebaran surrounded himself with swords of stone. In order to avoid the tips of the swords shooting up from the ground, one after another, the twins deftly maneuvered their bodies to perform evasions, yielding a momentary delay that shifted their freeway coordination into a solo attack from Ram. With Ram singled out, he grabbed one of his stone dows and thrust it toward her head on. That's fine. We'll be borrowing it. Having scooped up his sword with wind magic, Ram slammed it right into the side of his jaw. 91. That's fine. I'll not be borrowing it. Oh, that's good. That's a really good difference in there. I like that a lot. Hold on. That's really good. Mm, okay. Declaring so, Ren allowed the stone sword she had pulled toward her with wind to pass by, prettily crumbling as it flew past her. As she failed to take the sword, Aldebaran delivered a blow onto her. Ren parried that blow with wind from her wand, skillfully controlling the wind currents to build air pressure and push past the clash of blades. Grabbing her leg with a stone prosthetic, he hurled her behind him while being bombarded by an onslaught of wind blades, leaving Ram gritting her teeth behind him. Aldebaran pressed onward, and the delayed sisters of Flam and Grassus swooped down on him once more. Readying himself for their approaching agility that could not be underestimated on account of their youth, Aldebaran spread out his real right arm and artificial left arm and roused a surging wave of sand to clear away everything in 180-degree field of view in front of him. The girls were engulfed by the billowing sand, becoming encaged within the ground. Warrior to Yin 6, Magician to Wind 5, King to Flowers 8. A surging force abruptly slammed into him from the front, plunging him into the sea of swords he had forged behind him. 112. Warrior to Yin 6, Magician to Wind 5, King to Flowers 8. As soon uh, as soon heard it, he forcibly closed his outstretched arms, fixing the muzzle of the wave of sand directly in front of it. The large bearded man, who appeared there a beat later, basked in the billowing wave, ended up in the same predicament as Flamen Grassus. Thereby averting that misfortune, Aldebaran would attempt to overcome the enemies he had jumped out diagonally. Ulgoa! Still in his mid-air leap, he was struck by an unavoidable fastball of flame, scorching his insides. 146. Ulgoa! After trapping the twins and the large man in sand, he deliberately delayed his advance in response to the approaching fireball. Instead, what ended up basking in the inferno was a poorly made clay doll that Aldebaran had manifested in the spur of a moment, a poor knockoff of the magic Emilia had used to recreate Subaru with ice. The fire had aimed to strike Aldebaran's head as he leaped forward, so amidst a combat requiring split-second decisions, it was easily baited by the poorly made earthen doll. Wah! The skinny man who had cast the spell, with his mean-looking eyes and tongue piercing, gasped at Aldebaran's countermeasure. So long as he was not an expert magician, he would not be able to unleash old tier magic in rapid succession. Flipping up his artificial middle finger to that expression of shock, Aldebaran moved to advance even further this time. Fire! From an oblique trajectory behind him, a light was fired as a shockwave that speared through Aldebaran's back. The luminosity of the corona that seemed to scorch the world painted even his consciousness white. 147. Fire! Turning to face the direction of the gallant war cry, Aldebaran recognized the identity of the perpetrator as Felt, bearing her high canines in a valiant expression. In her grasp, the magic staff that sorts the beam of light. That was the meteor known as the Star Staff, something that the witch had once used during her lifetime to make even the divine dragon cry. In other words, it was one of his mentor's loose ends. For a teacher to be getting in my way here. What kind of damn bug is this? At the untiring challenge that would stretch out endlessly on ahead, at the wall he would have no choice but to surmount at all costs, and at the fact that it was something originating from none other than the very witch who had guided Aldebaran's path, a tinge of melancholy burgeoned in his heart. As Aldebaran contemplated, the white light mercilessly engulfed him once again. Well then, 148. Fire. The approach of this white life, or that white light. Just how on earth could it be conquered? New vow. I hereby vow to never bestow a gift upon another. The authority of Tristia. Just what exactly is that power capable of? I would never wave at anyone. Can't be a simple warp. This is so cool. It can't be a simple warp. There's no way it's just that. It's an authority. Vow to never pray before going to sleep. I ought to be manifesting some sort of concept, right? Tristia. Tristia, huh? I hereby vow to never comfort the wounds of another. Feeling blue, downer, cloudy skies, depression, feeling crushed. Crushed? For as long. Oh, wait, he's figuring it out. I hereby vow to never find joy in a clear sky. Is it crushing? Things like intervals and distances? No, it's not just those things being crushed, is it? I hereby vow to never lament a rainy day. It's crushing and filling an insufficient time for thinking, isn't it? But which factors aren't? I hereby vow to never gaze upon a rainbow in the company of another. Which factors aren't anything so convenient, now are they? That instant, hearing Al's words as he broke through the encirclement of the Aldebusters to finally stand right before her, a chill ran down Petra's spine. She was unable to actually see Al's eyes, concealed by his steel helmet. Yet, their eyes did meet. That sensation made Petra feel as if her innermost thoughts had been laid bare, a sense of urgency gripping her heart. It seemed to be exclaiming that somehow Al possessed a deeper knowledge of the witch factor than even Petra. Petra, which to flowers ate? As the command of the concerned husky voice overlapped with the cry of her beloved within her mind, Petra performed compression on the hesitation that had sprouted within herself, before distancing herself from Al to escape his clutch. That entire process was compressed, separating them in an instant. Oi oi! So you can even crush space for yourself? Petra turned to look back, having vanished from right before Al's eyes, and watched as he clicked his tongue at his failure to catch her. As Al's shoulders heaved up and down, his distance from Petra had been set back to square one. Between the two of them, as they glared at each other, the Aldebusters, whom Al had exhausted all his efforts to overcome, rose to their feet. In order to reach Petra once again, he would have no choice but to surmount the same hurdles. However, Petra did not feel as though she had bested him in the slightest. Petra, what Al just said a minute ago. I know. He really is resetting. Hearing the words of the imaginary Subaru as he floated beside her, Petra narrowed her eyes and gave a nod. It was not as if she had really been doubting it up until this point, but after witnessing Al's turning back time firsthand, she could not help but feel astonished by by how extraordinary it was. A little bit further down, I'm going to take a drink. Oh man, this is good. This is good. Ooh, spicy. Okay, let's keep going. Garfield's preemptive strike, the coordinated onslaught of ram, flam, and grassus, a free-pronged enclosure by the way of compression consisting of Gaston, rations, and felt, the obstruction of 50 people mobilized in accordance with Ramji's orders. Al had flawlessly dealt with it all. He had surmounted all of that with nothing but the most optimal of solutions, though our compression of fonts should be able to produce similar results. That's just thinking as hard as possible in order to come up with the right answer. As expected, it's a bit different from the powers that Subaru and Alsan hold. That's true. I guess I should be this strong too. Scratching his head, Subaru lamented his own worthlessness, but Petra did not see it the same way. Subaru, in his own Subaru way, had confronted his own authority head on, and holding tight to the many that had ought to have been lost, he had saved Petra and the others. There was not a single shred of worthlessness about it. And on the other hand, to that line of thought, how many times did you restart before you got the chance to reach your hand towards me? As far as Petra was aware, Al's strength as a warrior was modest. That was to say, it fell far short of the likes of Ram and Garfield on a level that could not even contend with Heinkel. Nevertheless, Al made sport of the Aldebusters all by himself, and was on the verge of putting them into checkmate. Not even just 10. He might already be on his 20th try. I think it might be a bit more. Hearing Subaru's naive estimation, Petra anticipated the possibility that it would have actually been 10 or 20 times that. In fact, supposing it was Petra in the position of needing to outmaneuver the Aldebusters, even if she had an authority that allowed her knowledge of upcoming developments, she was not confident she would be able to clear it in even 100 attempts. Not to mention, Al had also managed to sidestep Reinhardt, even if he had also needed to borrow the dragon's strength to do so. In order to accomplish such a feat, just how much of one's heart would one need to kill? If Al's turning back time was truly what Petra and Subaru envisioned, if it was truly a power that came at the cost of death like Natsuki Subaru's, then standing there was a dreadful warlock, masquerading in frivolity. Sorry. Ooh, excuse me. Ooh, excuse me. That's twice now. Fuck. Sorry about that. Al had already conquered the fear and loss of death. No, there existed no human capable of conquering that. If it had to be said, it was not conquest, but numbness. A being who had gone numb to even the instinct of all living things, to fear and distance oneself from death. That was the secret behind Al's strength, and what was tied to his absolute nature as a warlock. In order to surpass that absoluteness, she too would have no choice but to pay a worthy compensation. Petra. It's alright, Subaru. I'll be alright. He was a being who existed only within her mind. Only to the imaginary Subaru and him alone had Petra's secret been revealed. One that neither had been disclosed to any of the Aldebusters nor to any of the members of the Amelia camp. It was something that the warlock before her, deeply knowledgeable about witch factors as he was, had said to her. Upon the one who styled herself the Witch of Touristia, the likes of a convenient fate smiled not. Even so, Something like that isn't any reason for me to stop. Deceiving even herself in such a manner, Petra Laeti, the Witch of Touristia, exercised her authority. In exchange for interfering with the rules of the world, the existence known as herself was relinquishing its future. No matter how precious and irreplaceable the future was, the newly birthed witch did not hesitate whatsoever. Hmm. Quick drink. 7,011. Even so, something like that isn't any reason for me to stop. Seeing Petra's lips spin those words from afar, Aldebaran could not help but take his hat off. He did not go so far as to actually remove his helmet, but it was to the point he wanted to do so. After all, was that not so? Truly, Natsuki Subaru's one unforgivable guy. Grinding his teeth, Aldebaran, in his clash against the combined forces, it seemed like they called themselves the Aldebusters. He liked the flair, though he did not wish to consider its origin. Anyway, in his clash against the Aldebusters until this point, he had uncovered that Petra had taken in the witch factor of Touristia, along with the majority of specifics of how its authority functioned. As with any battle, it was essential to gather as much accurate information about the opponent as possible. This was especially true in the battles against sin archbishops and witches, or witches. And if it was often the case that if one confronted such an opponent without a grasp of what sort of authority they were up against, it tended to end in one-sided killing. The ability to overcome being killed in the first encounter was an advantage possessed by both Aldebaran and Natsuki Subaru. Putting that advantage on full display, Aldebaran had grasped the authority of Touristia. It was quite the ridiculous ability. The power to crush, to compress space and time, was utterly unrivaled in its adaptability and irksome nature. To top it all off, it seemed like this authority was also capable of performing compression on thoughts, so even without a single second of combat, they were able to think things thoroughly and pounce at him, one after another, with conclusions honed to a razor's edge. Even with Aldebaran's territory, it was difficult, or it was a difficult problem that could not be easily solved. In fact, in order for him to just slip past a mere 11 seconds of combat, he needed 7,000 retries. And yet, even after enduring all that, he had failed to catch the ever important Petra. Now that the same amount of distance had been opened between them, it would likely take the same or even a greater number of attempts to reach her again. Be that as it may, Valga's affinity with the authority of Tristia is just the worse. Among the members of the Aldebuster, the figure of Valga Cromwell, who had given him a thorough amount of torment, was present. While not making any use of the large build he had been blessed with, the resourceful monster had been granted an unlimited amount of time to think freely, allowing him to overwhelm Aldebaran by finding the most optimal solutions. It was a nightmare's combination, one akin to arming a gorilla with a machine gun. If Aldebaran were to dance in the palm of Valga's hand, there was a risk that he would suffer a complete defeat once again. Hence, even if he had managed to rob them of their time for thinking, he would not be granted many opportunities for trial and error. Not to mention, it was not Aldebaran's intention to keep allowing them to use the authority of Touristia. That was because the witch factor of Touristia is a defective article. It is a one of a kind factor that was prepared for the valiant, so it is not capable of compatibility with any other. From a different angle, however, it can be said that it is compatible with anyone who is willing to pay the compensation, but humans are creatures who can sell off far too much in exchange for their resolve. Information about the witch of Touristia, told to him by that witch in the past. Perhaps because she had so many reservations on the topic, the witch had not been very eager to divulge much concerning the two witch factors that ought to have been classified as supernum. I'm actually not familiar with supernumerary, I guess. I said that really weirdly. I put an accent to it out of nowhere. But after running out of patience, her explanations had been surprisingly loquacious, I guess. The pace throwing me off with this shit. I see a wall right there. We'll get to that in a minute. To make a mostly irrelevant long story short, the main points were as follows. The witch factor of Touristia would invoke its authority in exchange for the holder's will. The compensation used by the witch factor of Touristia could only be paid by the holder, Natsuki Subaru. And as funds arrived at that point, Aldebaran once again felt his indignation surge towards Natsuki Subaru. Of course, Aldebaran did not blind himself to the fact that his own plan of having Petra read the Book of the Dead had played a role in the events that led her to take in the witch factor of Touristia. But if it was Aldebaran who had created the impetus, then it was Natsuki Subaru who carried a significant portion of the responsibility. Considering the relationship between Aldebaran and Natsuki Subaru, saying that much was only natural. The large shadow that hung over Petra's life was something that originated from Natsuki Subaru. Aldebaran would not say that he had harbored malicious intent, nor did he believe that to be the case, but the influence he had over her went without saying, and not limited to just Petra. It could be said that he exhibited a certain fateful power over even the Aldebusters. No, over many scenarios even preceding this battle. Regardless, I'm kind of curious. I don't know yet. Hold on. Regardless, I'm trying to see like what that word would be, but I'm gonna keep reading and we'll see. Uh, Regardless, it was a bit ironic to call it a fateful power. After all, even though it was none other than Natsuki Subaru and Aldebaran who despise fate the most. Hmm. It would have been no exaggeration to say that their actions were what decided fate. Upon thinking that, what flashed through Aldebaran's mind were the words of the woman of such brilliant crimson. Back then, the words of praise she had spoken to him, their final time together, were attempting to scorch Aldebaran's heart. Deliberately, he averted his gaze and plugged his ears. At this stage, it was far too late for him to reflect on his own actions. That which now sustained Aldebaran was not whom he had lost, but the oath he had sworn to his teacher. The purpose for which Aldebaran had been born, that which he had been made into Aldebaran to accomplish, the culmination of all that was now being put to the test. For that reason, he had not the time to halt his tracks and think. Wait. Isn't this too long? Just a moment's pause. Chance to take a deep breath before the battle resumed. That's what it ought to have been. His opponents did not wish to allow him any breathers. He also did not want to grant his opponents much time, even though they should have been at such a consensus. How could Aldebaran be engaging in such deep thought? Shit, this is strange. What is this? What did she say? Far in the distance, he could tell that Petra had moved her lips. Oh, I see. One syllable at the time. Wait. Co. Compress? Compress. Compress agony. Oh, shit. Hold on. Far in the distance, he could tell that Petra had moved her lips one syllable at a time. He would pick up the sound. I should have looked at just one. I should have looked at the letters. Fuck, I should have combined them. One syllable at a time, he could pick up the sounds of those lips weaved. Everything that had been thrown in while he was thinking, he picked it all up and collected it together. Slow, sluggish, far too laggard. Collect the meaning, collect the significance, collect the intent. It was no use. He could not silence his thoughts. He would just have to think. Compress? Crushing? Huh? Crushing what exactly? Agony? Pain? Anguish? Suffering? Suffering? Concerns? Thoughts unraveling? Fuck, she got me. They've been compressed. My thoughts, they've been compressed. I hereby vow to never divulge this important secret. Oh man. Oh, Petra, holy shit. Compressed agony. I should take a drink. Dude. Just fuck you for trying to think. You're not thinking anymore. Oh man. Ah. Compressed agony. Compression of thoughts by the way of the authority of Touristia. Powerful buff effect consisting of speeding up her allies' thoughts, omitting any need for discussion and allowing them to take the most optimal measures after thorough consideration from everyone. Conferring that onto Al was one of the countermeasures Petra had prepared against him. We have too many thoughts to think about. Your head will get punctured. While it may have been presumptuous, Petra prided herself on being the third most knowledgeable in the world about the turning back time of return by death, just behind Subaru and Al. Petra had acquired that the scholarship from the vicarious experience of the death tasted by Subaru, so she had discovered a way to nullify, no, to overheat the seemingly invincible authority of Al, that being to overload his mind with accelerated thoughts. In the past, when the royal selection had first commenced, Subaru had gone into a fight and parted with Amelia in the royal capital, and the large amount of stress and mental burden that came as a result had worn down his heart. Inadvertently, Rem's devotion and his anger toward the Sen Archbishop had given him a chance to get back on his feet. But it was the fact that he had lost his will to fight, ending up as an empty husk, even if temporarily, she would recreate that effect. Since Al had already gone numb to the fear of death, it was likely that he would not lose heart no matter how many deaths he had exerted. Nonetheless, even if he had decided to make an enemy of the world, Al was still human. Rifts would form in his mind, and he would be unable to avoid having it come apart at the seams. She would make it so. For the purpose, no matter what she needed to give up in exchange, expand territory, matrix redefinition. While tormented by the acceleration of thoughts, Al could be heard silently voicing those words. His mind might have been under a high burden, but the situation was still a double-edged sword. The odds were even. Either Al's heart would give out from the extreme exhaustion, or he would make full use of the compression of his mind, like the Aldebrusters, to fend off Petra and the others. Hence, the battle from this point onward was do or die for the Aldebrusters in the truest sense. Everyone, it's only just getting started. Don't lose focus. Yeah! At Petra's encouragement, her allies whose interactions had been compressed cheered her in response. Finding that to be reliable, she was about to look over at this decisive battle against Al, starting from square one. Then she noticed. Among those who had just given her that reassuring response was someone whose voice she had not heard. It was possible that they had missed their timing, but feeling a peculiar sense of discomfort in that, Petra had glanced over in that direction, searching for the figure of that person who had not given her no response. And then she found him. Ram Ojisan? She had found the figure of the great strategist who had given no response, the old giant who bore the duty of observing the battlefield and giving timely and accurate commands, his eyes having gone white as he slowly collapsed onto the ground. Oh, Lord. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to take a drink. I've got to look at how dark it is in here. You know what? I can still be seen. I'm all right. I have to get more water after this. Let us rewind the clock to mere moments prior. Expand territory. Matrix redefinition. Indeed, upon hearing Aldebaran declare those words, a tremor ran through Ramji's large shoulders. Upon bearing witness to the sight of Aldebaran standing still before the combined forces, Ramji felt an unnatural discomposure settle within him, causing him to stiffen as he motionlessly widened his eyes. Ramji was well aware of Petra's stratagem that applied to the authority of Touristia. Her strategy revolved around accelerating Aldebaran's thoughts, placing a burden on his mind. Ooh, excuse me. Just making sure. Sorry about that. Placing a burden on his mind to fully exhaust him in one fell swoop. Ramji had also deemed it as a necessary step in order to take down Aldebaran, given his ability to perform something akin to turning back time, and thus he had promised to cooperate with it. He had harbored some apprehensions towards speeding up Aldebaran's thoughts, but since they were also compressing their own thoughts to arrive at the best possible answers, he accepted that it would just boil down to their overall strength. If that was their course of action, Ramji felt like he could lend his own strength. And as so it happened, the battle against Aldebaran had gone just about exactly how Ramji had expected it to. His comrades mobilized quickly and successfully managed to drive Aldebaran into a corner. But, much to the shock of Ramji, his discomposure would commence from that moment onward. Expand territory. Matrix redefinition. Indeed, as Aldebaran declared so, Ramji's position shifted in an instant. No, it was not only Ramji whose position had shifted. The positions of Aldebaran, Felt, and everyone else participating in the battle returned to where they had stood a mere 10 odd seconds prior, and recommenced. Sorry, I was saying it. Recommenced from there. And Ramji had already experienced that same phenomenon 5 times now. What in tarnation is this? Craning his neck all around, Ramji gathered that he was amidst the same scenery he witnessed 5 times now, and wrung those words out in a solemn tone. Oh, I didn't mean to right click. Nobody other than Ramji had noticed the abnormality of this situation. Everyone, it's only just getting started. Don't lose focus. Yeah. As proof of that, everyone other than Ramji responded to Petra's rousing voice of leadership. Then, they all faced Aldebaran and sprung at him in unison. Ramji, give us orders. Failing to notice his discomposure, Felt searched for a position to attack with the Star Staff in hand. The allies, other than Felt, who also possessed techniques that could serve as the deciding factor, were also running while awaiting Ramji's commands. Watching their backs, Ramji gulped down his bitter saliva and shouted out the commands, deferring to the ones from just before. Expand territory. Matrix redefinition. Now for the 6th time, the final battle against Aldebaran commenced. So that's what he did. Because you know what I was curious about in regards to this? Let's go to the... Oh, I should actually like that art. You know, hold on. Because we're also going to go on break, but give me a minute here to just... Oh, just here. There. Yeah, you know what I've realized? Uh, when they were talking about... maybe I already actually did it. No, I didn't. When they were talking about Yay on the name chapter, the thing I had noticed was that they brought up the idea that Yay was experiencing this stuff, right? That she was like also kind of noticing it whenever it was happening, and it threw her off, and it's what scared her. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense because it's only Al that should be able to experience that. But under that implication, that it's like, oh yeah, he can make you feel that as well. He can make you feel that, right? Like you can go back. That's interesting, right? The idea that your memory goes back as well, it's like, oh shit, right? Oh, that's a pretty good trump card for him. 5,800 words for the next chapter. Okay, so we're good for this next one. I'm going to take a quick break here, but we are good for this next one. So, I will be right back. And when we're back, we'll do the next chapter and we'll see about potentially doing a third. Maybe not, because if it's a really long chapter, maybe not, right? But we'll see. We'll see. For now, I will be right back. Alright. Apologies for that long delay. Just sorting some stuff out. Eh. Also, nothing serious in that regard. I realized I said sorting stuff out, and that makes it sound like, oh, it's a very, very drastic and serious. And I was like, no, no, mainly on my end. Okay. I might actually switch the BRB at some point. I don't know if I ever mentioned that, but I'm like, I feel like I'm running a risk with it like that. You know what I mean? So, maybe at some point I'll switch that out, and then I'll also... I mean, honestly, just for the future, I think I will just cut out the BRB segments, because I can do that in YouTube's built-in editor. So I think I'll likely try and just go in when I can, and just cut that out. Just for the sake of saving time on a lot of these. You know, helps if people want to watch and don't want the extra, like, fat in there, essentially. I am tired, but we are going to still do that second chapter, don't worry. Ah. Alright. We should be good to go. Let me double check something real quick. Just don't mind me, I'm just gonna take a moment. On YouTube. I'm trying to check something on YouTube specifically, like on my end. Oh, damn. Okay. Alright. Ugh. Fuck, I'm tired. Let's see. Me? Yeah. Alright, there we go. We're good. Yeah, I'm just gonna sit for now for the rest of this, because I might as well, right? Not gonna stand the whole time like usual. And I mean, if I stand later, I'll stand later, but that's how it is. Let's go to reading. Ooh, excuse me. Alright. We are good to go. We got the art, the aggressor of the territory, and then yeah. I'm very curious on how long that next chapter is going to be, but we'll find out. Apparently, this one is on the relatively short side, so that's going to be nice, right? We can get this one done pretty quickly, and yeah, I guess if it is 8:30, we're probably not doing that last one, like that third one, that long one. That's okay. We can save that for like Saturday or something like that. I really might have to take a nap if that's going to be the case, because man, I'm thinking about like me being tired now, and it's like fuck. Alternatively, it's tomorrow, but we'll see about that. We will see about that. Okay. Put the chat up. There we go. Let us commence forth. Sure. The pillow back here is good. There we go. Okay. Let's do this. Actually, one last little drink of water. Okay. All right. Let's do this. Aldebaran's territory was an authority linked to a witch factor. However, Aldebaran was not the holder of a witch factor. The witch had called this supernumerary, or a special case, but Aldebaran believed that instead of such sweet-sounding words, it ought to be declared as appropriated or enumerated. This phenomenon had a precedent. For instance, having once possessed authorities, the witches of sin still retained the same powers even after being reduced to souls post-mortem. On this matter, the witch had likened witch factors to keys with the capacity to open the door that granted one the right to interfere with the world. She had conjectured that once the door was open, it would perhaps remain open even if the key was lost. Let me make sure, just making sure my audio is good. Albeit in that case, even if it could explain the witches of sin, it would be unable to explain Aldebaran or even the witch herself. So in conformance with this, she had proposed the idea or the theory of inheritance. That possibly a profound connection to a being who is compatible with a witch factor would innately open the door to the right to interfere with the world, to an authority. However, just as a being with wings might find it difficult to explain the sensation of moving their wings to someone bereft of them, it is difficult to explain our authorities, as they were not appended post haste. You could say that our doors were half open by birth. The reason why the witch had worn a smug grin as she said that was likely because it was her best attempt at humor. Unfortunately, Aldebaran did not laugh in the slightest, but he could at least assent to the point she was making. Certainly, if the door had been fully open, the airflow would have likely been much better. He was merely peeking through a gap in the door with poor airflow, trying to reach his hand through to the other side. Hence, the door would obstruct him, trapping his hand and causing unforeseen consequences. If, like the witch, he could be satisfied without opening the door, perhaps it would have been better for him. However, Aldebaran was far too banal, and was far too helpless for that. If he did not keep the door open, Aldebaran would have had no chance of fulfilling the duty the witch expected of him. In that case, Aldebaran had no choice but to keep the door open, even if it was only ajar. Ergo, just like a half-open door, there were many opaque aspects of Aldebaran's authority. From his hands-on experience with using it, as well as the witch's own inferences, he had a grasp on around 80% of the complete picture. Even so, Aldebaran faced no impediment to the use of his authority, nor did he ever hate or hesitate to use it. That might be perceived as dangerous, but it was the same as how using a cell phone without fully knowing how a cell phone worked would not pose any threat to one's life. But then again, Aldebaran's authority was intimately tied to life, so the circumstances might differ slightly to those of a cell phone. In any case, although his authority had accompanied him through a perceived time that spanned the length of over 10 lifetimes, the territory was a large black box, the bug that would sometimes occur with the utmost extremity of that. I'm realizing the territory was largely a black box. Surely it's not a reference to, because previous chapter we had a very blatant sort of reference in there. All I'm saying is surely the black box and talking about time isn't a reference to something that also involves very similar types of characters as the other thing being referenced. Bug that would occur within the territory was the phenomenon whereby the holder of the initiative within the established matrix would be transferred from Aldebaran onto a different target. Normally, by creating a territory of his own volition, Aldebaran would be permitted an unlimited number of attempts only within that defined space and time. During that interval, it was a given that Aldebaran would maintain his own continuity of memories, carrying out different approaches with each attempt as he searched for a breakthrough. However, whenever some discrepancy in the starting parameters caused this bug to occur, the right to redo the events within the territory would transfer to another person within the matrix, and until the territory was lifted, they'd be stuck repeating in an unending matrix in perpetuity. So that explains what was happening with Old Man Rom. That explains what was happening with Ye. Okay. This bug, which had never manifested back during the days with the witch, was something Aldebaran suspected had developed as a result of having lost faith in his authority following his defeat in his first battle. In fact, the bug invariably occurred at points when Aldebaran doubted his own authority. One such example was long ago on the Gladiator Island, when he had been pitted against a formidable enemy in a death match he had nary a chance in a million of winning. Thereafter, as well, when Aldebaran had wavered on his position in a clash against Elite Burial, or when he had fought Ye, right there, after she was sent to assassinate Priscilla, this bug had occurred. Above all, fascinating, transferring the initiative of an authority onto another party. I've never heard anything like it. When Aldebaran challenged the Witch of Greed who greeted him in the him at the Castle of Dreams, that had occurred. It's quite the uncommon experience, I see. So, or no, I see. So that is the world you behold. Certainly, if you are unable to decipher what might be causing it, it would likely be a rather maddening phenomenon. He'd slashed at the completely altered Witch of Greed, demanding that she return to the witch he knew. Having launched attacks on her from every conceivable direction, when his creativity and trial and error had proven completely ineffective, what sprouted within Aldebaran was skepticism towards his authority, and as if to prove that, the bug surfaced. An alteration yielded from an uncertainty towards the absolute nature of your authority. That is to say, a power derived from your weakness. A pity that it seemed to be completely ineffective against those already lost to madness. That goes for her and for me. As Aldebaran stood baffled, the Witch of Greed spoke in the depth of the hell she had tasted. Certainly, that was the world of the territory Aldebaran knew, which, while also something decidedly different at the same time. Just how on earth the Witch of Greed had managed to endure it, he knew not. As the Witch of Greed had said herself, was it because she was not the same? In the majority of cases, when you exercise your authority, you are the weaker party. You cling to the territory in order to locate an infinitesimal chance of victory, wrench it open, and at last grasp onto it. The victim, so to speak. Thus, if we declare the party who forces your use of the territory as being the aggressor, this would be an exchange of initiative between victim and aggressor. A little bit further down. Watching as the Witch of Greed gleefully divulged the reality of hell, Aldebaran felt all the blood through his body grow cold, understanding that it was none other than a nightmare of his own creation. The Castle of Dreams having been turned into a nightmare, a bug that had been yielded in the territory, it was all the result of Aldebaran's weakness. It was a punishment borne by an unforgivable sin known as weakness. The plan is still underway. The primary objective may be stuck at an impasse, but the secondary objective remains intact. The best we can accomplish with what little we have, that is the purpose for which both you and I are currently here, is that not? That sin was his cross to bear, yet as it weighed too heavy on his shoulders to carry on his own, he had nearly abandoned it. And so, the Witch of Greed sneered at him, agreeing to drag it forward alongside him. Indeed, at that smile, one he had longed to see, yet one he had not wished to see, Aldebaran resolved himself. I, no matter what, will definitely kill you. The territory's bug, even that power derived from his own weakness, even that branding of his defeat, by putting it to use, Aldebaran would carry out his duty as the following star. Why must love fade? The Witch of Greed whispered such a musing, but the answer to it Aldebaran did not know. He had lost the witch who sought love, lost the sun princess he had loved, and yet still did not know. Neither did he wish to know. Oh, this is interesting on the formatting of it. Unless it's just missing the spaces, this is just interesting on the formatting. Hmm. Okay. All right. All right. All right. Yeah. All right. Let's go. His thoughts were accelerating. Amidst the thoughts that had likely condensed by the authority held by Petra, Aldebaran was unable to establish a priority order for the flood of thoughts ceaselessly inundating. Yeah, him, pushing his mind to the verge of bursting. Shit. It was a fearsome authority. Unlike divine protections, that could be a hit or miss in their effectiveness, most authorities would invoke supernatural powers far transcending the norm, and Petra's compression was no exception. Authorities tended to be as powerful as the witch factor holder's mind was flexible. But in that regard, Her adaptability was far too high. It was either the result of unnaturally strong convictions or flexibly born out of weakness. The talent to draw out a power, or the talent to draw a powerful ability from Witch Factor was greatly tied to one's mentality. The Witches of Sin and the Sin Archbishop would have been the former, while Aldebaran and Petra would have likely fallen into the latter category. Thus, whether it was people blessed with divine protections, people compatible with a witch factor, or even people with no abilities whatsoever, the ones who perceived Aldebaran to be formidable always fell into the latter category. In fact, the attack that had aimed to compress Aldebaran's thoughts had been immediately effective, as his opponent had hoped. For Aldebaran, who had wished to avoid mental exhaustion, it scored full marks on nastiness as it whittled away at his remaining strength. Disregarding his authority, opposite, Aldebaran was also on the weaker side. In a battle that necessitated moment to moment decision making, he fully understood the usefulness of a power that always allowed one to find the best course of action. But usually, no matter how much one endeavored during a battle, they could never hope for perfection. Ergo, it was necessary to eventually make a decision, cease one's thoughts, and take the leap into action. Petra's impression forced the blank spaces in thoughts that would have originally been discarded to be filled, imposing over double the amount of exhaustion just to even reach the same conclusion. Hence, in exchange for that enormous waste of his mental capacity, Aldebaran had to keep up with the utmost extremity in responses, akin to threading a needle as he formulated the most optimal maneuver against the highly motivated Aldebusters. And then, right in the middle of that exhaustion, Ramji. Just after tiding over the offensive of the Aldebusters, what struck his ears was a voice akin to a scream. With that exclamation, Felt stood wide-eyed, watching as the large man of advanced age collapsed in the distance. That instant, not only Felt, but others of the Aldebusters too, experienced a sense of unease tremor through their hearts. Before they even knew what transpired, Valga Cromwell had fallen. A little bit further down. A little bit. There we go. Naturally, even if they did not know the method, there was only one person who could have been responsible. As a result, excluding the ones who had been rushing to Valga's side, the hostility of everyone else was concentrated on Aldebaran. While receiving their animosity, Aldebaran, unseen to them from within his helmet, was motionlessly widening his eyes with the same shock as the Aldebusters had received. Became the aggressor of the territory, didn't he? It was not as though he had aimed to activate it, but, since he was the cause, he knew exactly what had transpired. The territory's bug had occurred, causing Valga, one of the aggressors, to be handed the initiative. Then, it was likely that the old giant had repeated these brief few moments enough times for his heart to be crushed. Chi. At the arrival of a chance that could be described as being rescued from the brink of death, or as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Aldebaran did not welcome it. As mentioned previously, the occurrence of the bug was unrelated to Aldebaran's volition. At the very least, it was not something he actively invoked. Thus, the activation of the bug was something Aldebaran took no joy in. After all, in the majority of cases, the bug would destroy the hearts of whom it targeted. On Gladiator Island, Sir Leap, even with Ye, facing off against Aldebaran, those who were engulfed by the territory's bug, caught in an inescapable loop of death, had all ended up suffering some mental abnormality. Gladiators whose hearts were shattered proceeded to have their heads chopped off by Aldebaran. Liberio lost his sanity, entirely forgetting about his long-held ambition, and Ye Tenzin succumbed to dread and was thus transformed into his loyal servant. Having levied the condition of no killing upon the execution of his plan, the way Aldebaran saw things, the territory's bug, distorting the hearts of its victims beyond recognition, could only bring about an end synonymous with death. Hence, Aldebaran took no joy in this conclusion. Was that really true? There is nobody who can defeat you, you whom I created. The voice of the witch he had once betrayed, her expectations, her ideals, now sounded within him. Faced with the tenacity, strategy, and unity of his opponents, he exercised fear toward the 1 in a million, uncertainty toward the 1 in a billion, and doubt toward the 1 in a trillion. In doing so, the conditions to invoke the territory's bug were met. Those were, so to speak, because Aldebaran had questioned his authority himself and the witch. There is nobody who can defeat you, you who I created. Once again, he heard the witch's voice. Then, he watched as the subsequent aggressor collapsed to the ground, their eyes having gone white. Vow to never cherish silence. Oh boy. Oh boy. Getting interesting here. Alright. Ramoji-san. The situation shifted, and in an unfavorable direction for Petra's side, at that. Watching as Ramji's large body suddenly began to sway, collapsing to the ground, Petra's eyes widened greatly. Surging forth within her chest was a multitude of emotions, composed of shock, bafflement, incomprehensibility, and discomposure. It seemed as if they were about to overwhelm her entire body, but Petra, ooh, excuse me. We're good. Wait, we're good. A loud bark from the imaginary Subaru was just barely able to keep Petra's consciousness from going over the edge. I was fine to be surprised by unforeseen circumstances. There existed not a single person who could remain unshaken after receiving a hit from outside their consciousness. However, as the Witch of Touristia, there was something Petra needed to do before being surprised. In response to the events that unfolded, she needed to compress every last reaction. This isn't a joke. Something's happening. Someone get Ramji back up. Don't be unreasonable. His eyes just went white all of a sudden. What the hell? What happened to him? Oi, what are we gonna do? Without the old man, who's gonna... Shit, it's Ram. It's gotta be Ram. Can't be helped. The queen will be leaving the board. Do keep that in mind. If we don't move right away, we'll be no better than pigs waiting for scraps. I'll make the first move. God damn it. We can't lose after coming this far. Naturally. Compressing this unrest that had been spread all around in a single instant, Petra fulfilled her duty as the Witch of Touristia. The cause had yet to be identified. However, they immediately decided on how to respond, with everyone beginning to search for the best course of action in unison. Naturally, Petra was no exception. A little bit further up. Leaving the situation to Ram, who had taken on the role of the commander from the collapsed Ramji, Petra invoked the authority of Touristia to compress the travel distance between herself and Ramji. Ramoji-san, having fallen flat on his face, Ramji's large body could not be lifted by Petra's slender arms. But peering into the side-turned countenance of the old giant, Petra choked up at the evident abnormality. Ramji's visage appeared lifeless, giving off a sense of fatigue as if he had aged 100 years in an instant, though he never really looked like he was bursting with lively energy to begin with. He wasn't like this up until a moment ago, that's for sure. Besides, if he thought there was something strange with his physical condition, Ramoji-san would have surely done the proper reporting, contact, and discussion. Ramji was well aware that if he carelessly concealed the abnormality in his condition, it would only serve to benefit the enemy. If the authority of Touristia had been placing an abundance of burden on him, and if there had been signs he would faint like this, he absolutely would have informed them himself. What about the unfunny theory that Ramji used up all his remaining lifespan due to the rapid firing of the authority? It's really not funny, so theory rejected. Still, I don't think it was my authority. Al-san had to have done something to Ramoji-san. But what exactly? Ending up at the same dead-end question, Petra and Subaru puzzled for an answer. Even now, since the Aldebusters were operating under Ram's commands, fighting on in an effort to corner Al, Petra could not afford to divert all of her attention to figuring out Ramji's collapse. With that in mind, Petra was about to stand back up. Goddamn idiot, that's the priority. Indeed, with her back facing this direction, Felt corrected the order of priority without hesitation. As Petra stared in wonder, Felt, with the star staff in hand, as she flashed her sharp, high canines. If you can't somehow figure out what just happened, we'd all be taken down with the same method. As if to prove Felt's words as she grit her teeth in frustration, The members of the Aldebusters who had ought to been driving Al into a corner were decreasing. At a glance, several people had fallen to the ground, left behind by the fierce battle unfolding. From how Felt had put it, the reason they had collapsed would have been the same as Romji. Romji wouldn't go down without a fight. Keep searching. There's gotta be something. Having expended a few seconds in her interaction with Felt, Petra looked at Romji's large body. She also considered Romji to be someone who, without any oversights, would live up to Felt's expectations. Hence, if Felt believed that there had to be something, then there was undoubtedly something. I mean, if you suddenly get hit with an authority, there's no way you'll be able to leave any clues behind. You think it's an authority? It'd be strange if it wasn't. Nisima would have realized if it was magic. Right. Felt's instance, Felt's instance crossed faith, or crossed with faith, I'll say, in Ram's insight. The multiplication of those two factors lent credence to the idea that it was Al's authority that had toppled Romji. And so, if Romji had truly left something behind, here, upon thoroughly investigating Romji's body, which was lying languidly sprawled on the ground, Petra noticed the old giant's finger was covered in dirt. What had caused it to be dirtied was the mark he had scratched into the ground with his finger. Falling and using that impact to shift the giant's body, Petra tumbled down and discovered the message that Romji had left on the ground. That was a mark? Kanji? Nah, some sort of map symbol? No, or not that. It's more simple. At Subaru's speculation, upon witnessing the same thing, Petra put the brakes on his theorizing in a loud voice. The mark that Romji had inscribed on the ground was a thick horizontal line with 4 small vertical lines layered over it. It was not kanji or a map symbol, it was tally marks that counted up the number of 5 in a single unit. In other words, just before Romji had lost his consciousness, he was counting something. You know what? I do like when it's Al, it speeds up like this in terms of like how the lines are. There's no spaces between them. That's actually really clever. So it is on purpose, and that is actually really cool. I like that. Mm. All right. Territory's bug. Actually, let me go a little further down. Just cause. Territory's bug had begun to encroach upon Aldebaran's plan. Shit. Faced with the aggravating reality, a curse escaped through the gaps between Aldebaran's clenched teeth. The first one to fall had been the strategist of the Aldebusters, Valga Cromwell. Despite the loss of their commander, was it Petra's authority that allowed them to recover so quickly? But if its effects was just crushing the interval, then it meant that everybody had managed to collect their emotions through their own individual strengths. Each time he keenly felt the strength in each and every one of their hearts, Aldebaran's own weakness was brought into focus. Shit! In that instant, as he thought about his own immaturity, the Aldebusters suffered yet another dropout. A thug brandishing a large machete fell to his knees, fainting as he spewed yellow gastric juices. Aldebaran made no counterattacks on his own, or of his own. He could not. As a fundamental tactic, he was being repelled by Garfield, whose base stats were on a much higher level, leaving him unable to mount a counteroffensive. Counteroffensive. Even so, his opponents had gradually been bleeding strength as the result of Aldebaran's unintended bug. There is nobody whom can defeat you, or who can defeat you, whom I created. Once again, he had heard the witch's voice. As soon as he did, the subsequent bug was activated and another body hit the ground. That was difficult for Aldebaran. It was painful, unbearable. The mental aberration produced by the territory's bug, the fact that it sometimes would beget an outcome more repulsive than death of the body, was something Aldebaran had come to learn in his days since waking up on the Gladiator Island. Hence, Aldebaran did not desire any such unintended conclusions to be brought about by the territory's bug. How are you blaming others for? It's obvious even without needing to see your face. It also pisses me off when people like Reinhard wear a face that seems to say everything's their own fault, but yours is way worse than his could ever be. Shaping a gap and forcing his way through the breach, Aldebaran found Felt glaring at him from across the human wall of the Aldebusters, dwelling with her sharp crimson gaze with a stern, scornful ear directed towards Aldebaran, bereft of lie and or falsehood. This was an ardent fury, one that she did not have, or one that she did not even displayed when she had, or when he had taken her hostage, nor when he had ordered Roy to eat her memories. So he could not fathom what he had done in this moment to truly incur her wrath. A little bit further up. Neither the fall of the giant, who was likely family to her, nor the near robbery of the path she had forged until this point, the source of this ear that felt now directed towards Aldebaran was. When the princess was around you, you or was around, you'd do whatever she told you. So now that she's no longer among us, well, that was a shitty joke. You're just gonna do whatever a totally different person says, like a puppet. Even though you've got the nerve to talk all big and declare yourself the enemy of the world, do you really have no personhood to call your own? Spoken with an expression of anger from the very depths of her soul. Felt's words caused Aldebaran's cheeks to stiffen ever so slightly. Following that, his rage began to well up at the jabs of this utterly ignorant teenage girl. To say he had no personhood, even thoughtless declarations had their limits. Without even knowing the reason why Aldebaran could never call himself anything but Aldebaran, how dare she claim that Aldebaran had no personhood? Indignation scorched his entrails, and he sensed a nostalgic pain in his arm bereft of its forearm. This kind of useless rage ought to be cast aside. It was supposed to be his strong suit, to dismiss things, to scorn them, to ridicule them as being naught but obstacles in his path, and to cast them aside. Getting entangled with such things, and losing sight of his objective, would be just putting the carriage before the ground dragon. After all, avoidance of confronting his raw, genuine emotions was Aldebaran's special skill. No, it was a certain kind of worldly wisdom that he had acquired during the 18 years since he had been released from the Black Orb. Or since he had been released from that Black Orb. Oh, oh yeah, because I forgot it went to darkness. Yeah, so he was. Oh yeah, that shit got you, huh? And so this time he would do the same. It's exactly as that maiden felt told you. Pay for what you've done, bastard. Drop dead, you moron. Nobody's got your back, bastard, or nobody's got your back anymore, bastard. Alcima, prepare yourself. The hour of judgment. Go ahead and cry like a pig. Truly a fool. With the force of a surging wave, a torrent of abuse crashed into Aldebaran like a tempest of disdain. He attempted, he attempted to ignore them like he usually. With his thoughts compressed, he was forced to confront them all. With his processing circuits shortened to the speeds far beyond normal, he was left being made to process every last superfluous thought and emotion. There's nobody who can defeat you, you who I created. There's nobody who. I'm not going to repeat it this many times, but the phrase many, many times. As Aldebaran felt an urgency to not allow such a progression, voice drowned out everything within his mind. Loath to surrender himself to that, Aldebaran searched for the girl at the root of the situation. The witch of Touristia had forced Aldebaran to deliberate over every last thing. He was counting something. Having spotted the witch of Touristia, Petrolite, in the distance, he could make out that she had muttered those words upon discovering some sort of message left by the collapsed Valga Cromwell. That instant, a thick, blackish, ardent impulse began to brim over from within Aldebaran, taking on the form of words. Your stars were bad. Yeah, there you go. You're nobody's puppet. Now your true feelings are finally showing. Hearing Aldebaran's words, woven by a voice tinged with torrid fury, Felt flashed her teeth. Even though no part of that should have resembled her in the slightest, not whatsoever, not a single millimeter, nor a single shred, nor a single iota, it appeared to him as a smile of the same nature as the one Priscilla Burial would often display. A nightmare. As such, he must extinguish it. Thus, for the first time in his life, Aldebaran willingly invoked the bug of the territory. Expand territory. Matrix redefinition. Vowed to never wish for kindness from anyone. Mm. Ooh, we're getting interesting. We're getting real interesting here. Oh man. Isn't it crazy that it's like 9 p.m. my time, and there's still like light outside, kind of beaming through a little bit. Ah, that's the summer for you. Expand territory. Matrix redefinition. As Owl's voice spoke those words, Petra's turned around whilst sensing a certain alteration. I think it's gonna. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry about that. I mean, I guess it's just any time I drink, it makes sense, but you know. She had already heard that battle cry several times over the duration of this battle, and likely it was some sort of activation requirement for Owl's authority. In a territory with a matrix, as Ramji had summarized beforehand, in the exchange for the limitations of Owl's turning back time, it seemed to be quite a powerful ability. Its time frame was far shorter than Natsuki Subaru's return by death, yet it was consciously activated. If it was possible to manually save in a baseball game, then you'd be able to save and load for each ball in the batter's box. Remember what type of pitch it is, then keep hitting home runs every time. I get it, but it's tricky to understand. Can you really do that sort of thing? It's a bit difficult to explain to a girl who only knows the concept of the game on a surface level. For having read Natsuki Subaru's Book of the Dead, she had intended on understanding it past the surface level, but in the sense that they were memories that did not come alongside the first-hand experience, what the imaginary Subaru was saying was correct. Although she was peering into Subaru's memories, Petra's sensibilities remained entirely her own. Though, of course, as with her feelings toward Amelia and Rem, what mattered most in that regard was how a large portion of those emotions occupied within Subaru. In any case, you can't let him out of sight. I know. With the change in his voice and demeanor, the battle against Al was likely advancing to the next stage. Let's go further down. All the while, he had been whittling down their combat strength using the same method he had used on Rom-G. Yet miraculously, the Aldebusters' main force, centered around Ram, Garfield, and Felt, still held strong. There was no doubt that the compressed thinking and communications were proving to be a great help. So Petra found it worthwhile to extract the absolute most value out of utilizing the authority of Touristia, shutting her eyes to its own or to its many demerits. Let's get him, you bastards. Yeah. As if to substantiate Petra's determination, the overall morale of the group erupted with Feld's rousing cry. The pressure being applied by the Aldebusters was certainly chipping away at Al's reserves, abrading his mind as it drove his heart and body to a lethal point of exhaustion. It would all come down to whoever's willpower ran out first, a test of endurance until one side could no longer remain standing. Indeed, it had happened at the moment Petra clenched her teeth, with her body and mind roused to high spirits. Huh? In spite of herself, her tightly clenched jaw dropped agape, leaving Petra dumbfounded. That was only natural. After all, it was only just a moment ago that the Aldebusters had fired themselves up, brimming with motivation as they triumphantly launched their all-out assault on Al. Those members of the Aldebusters, without any warning, suddenly began toppling down where they stood like dominoes, unable to do anything about it. Unable to do a thing about it. That included Rem and Garfield, too. It, of course, included the members of the main force, Felt, Flam, and Grasses, Ratchins, Gaston, Camberley, Voltero, and even the rest of the members of the Aldebusters all lost their strength. Not a single person was left standing. Some fainted, some had their eyes lose focus as the result of the extreme exhaustion, some were petrified like dolls, becoming unable to move. Everyone, it was all of them. No, there was still one person who remained standing. It's the stars. Climbing over the collapsed wall of the Aldebusters, the person who had stepped forth, while fiddling with the metal fixtures of the black helmet on his head, spilled those words. As they reached her ears, Petra felt as if a part of her brain had gone numb, unable to put her head to good use. She could not afford to cease thinking. Even if compression could fill in the intervals between events that had happened, it would serve no use in filling an expanse of void. The stars were bad. Declaring so as he approached her, Al removed his hand from his helmet and reached out to Petra, standing motionless as she was. Right this instant, she needed a way to deal with it. A response. A countermeasure. Petra, fall back with compression. He, reflexively following the angry sounding plea, Petra compressed space, retreating a great distance backwards. having created a much larger or much greater distance between them than simply jumping backwards would have. Petra's knee trembled as she gazed at Al across the rocky terrain. Receiving her gaze, Al repeatedly opened and closed the hand that he had failed to grab Petra and breathed a long sigh. Then, with the distance open between himself and Petra, he glared directly right back at her. Play ball. Expand territory. I should probably take a drink, but matrix redefinition. Let's scroll down a little bit from there. Oh, I see what the play is here now. Obviously wording because of, what Subaru was saying, so it's fitting. But then also, it's the thing of, he gave her a chance. He gave her a chance to come quietly, and now he's going to use the ability properly. For that moment, she heard Al say the catchphrase that was typically used to declare the start of a ball game. As if to overlap with that expression, a different declaration of Al's followed just after. At the phenomenon of simultaneous utterances from the same person, Petra's brain momentarily came to a halt as it attempted to grasp the situation. But, as that stagnation would have been fatal, she immediately attempted to pull herself together. Let's get 'em, you bastards. Yeah. Eh? The very next moment, a courageous cheer and a response shook the air, and she was stupefied. Spread out before her, alive and well, were the figures of the Aldebusters, who were supposed to have been plunged into catastrophic state mere moments ago. In a battle formation with Ram as the commander, Garfield as the vanguard, and felt ready with the Star Staff as the finisher, they were about to clash with Al. But, oi oi oi, this is astonished. The imaginary Subaru floating beside her voice, or her voice, this his bewilderment. Even if she knew that bewilderment was the same sensation she was feeling, no peace of mind came upon Petra's heart. Only, receiving a tremendous discomposure, the situation moved faster than she could speak any words to stop it. Uh, Undoubtedly, that was the reply of the scene that had unfolded just earlier. The members of the Aldebusters all collapsed in unison, causing the exceedingly reliable group to crumble. As the powerful and brave Ram, Garfield, and Felt keeled over, Petra once again crossed gazes with the last person remaining. Al, it's the stars. Your stars were bad. That was the exact proclamation, followed by the exact movements, so without needing to be prompted, Petra relied on the emotions in her heart, leaped backwards through compression, and leaped backwards through compression. Once again, glaring at Al across the distance, open between them, she had heard his voice breathe out a sigh. That was play ball. That marked the beginning of Petra Lighty's unending hell. Yeah, yeah. Let me let me look at how long this next chapter. Named chapter. Oh shit. Is this her first ever named chapter? Obviously, we're probably done, assuming that this is going to be long. Like, let me double check. But dude, I can see the first sentence, and it literally starts out with like describing stuff about her. Oh man. Oh boy, how long is this chapter going to be? That's a long scroll, yet 12,000 words. Yeah, yeah, okay. We'll save that for either like Saturday or something like that. Okay, okay, okay. We'll cut it there. We'll stop there. Let me go back and like all that art. That one, that one. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and we're gonna have. I'm looking at the art credits here. We're gonna have plenty of art for this next chapter. Okay, so if I remember correctly, I'm gonna try and obviously not look at details here. Uh, if I remember correctly, how do I get to? Oh yeah, just be there. We go here. I just want to see. So 59 is the last numbered one. Um, yeah, okay, that's correct. Yeah. So, okay. Okay. So In that case, yeah, Saturday we tackle 56 and 57, hopefully. Then either Monday we tackle all the last four, or Monday, Tuesday we tackle the last two of them. Or potentially tomorrow we do some of this as well. Probably not. If it's gonna be this long of a chapter, maybe not. We'll see. We'll see on that. Um but yeah, I'm thinking Saturday we tackle the next two, and Monday we finish up. So that'll be all for tonight, right? That was fun. That was actually really damn good. Ooh, that's got me excited. Let me bookmark this because I need to change up my bookmark. But yeah, we will be back on Saturday for more. I don't think it'll be tomorrow. I think it'll be Saturday, which is all right. I think I personally think that's fine. And yeah, uh, once we're back, then we'll be here for more. We'll be here for the Petra name chapter. We'll be here for 57, and we go from there. We'll be almost done after that. We will be almost done. But I'm gonna head off here. I'm feeling that tired sort of fatigue. Yeah. So with that said, take care. Have yourselves a great night, great day, whatever it may be. Stay safe, and I will see you all, I guess, Saturday. That's most likely when. So, take care, peeps.